For the average Korean child, getting into a prestigious university is his or her main goal in life, at least in their younger years anyway. The pressure to get into a good college, which is brought on not only by the parents, but also by the schools and society itself, has spawned a culture that focuses too much on results and results only. So for our special discussion segment tonight, let me introduce the panel. We have Sid Kim, representing the Hagwon or private institute industry here. You might know him better as the DJ of Soul of Asia, or formerly the host of the evening show, and Dr. Kim Byung-ju, head of KLNP Consulting. And we will be talking about the recent SAT test leak and its implications. So welcome back, Dr. Kim and Dr. Sid Kim.
Yeah, Dr. Kim and Dr. Kim. Hello.
Yes, two doctors. So Sid, how does it feel to be sitting on that side as opposed to this side?
Well, it's much more comfortable to sit on this side, to tell the truth.
That's nice. Well, great to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me.
So let's go through what happened first of all. How was it possible to get the test questions out so easily?
Well, there's a couple of ways to do this. And recently what they did is a teacher hired students to go in there, and they hid razor blades, I guess, in their pencil erasers. And what they did is they just cut out some of the test pages, and you can't take the whole thing. So what they did was probably one student would take out a certain number of pages, another would do the rest, and eventually they would have a full set. And some of the questions, if possible, they would type them into their scientific calculator. So that's how they did it this time around. Recently, I guess it was about a month ago, what they did was someone just actually in Thailand took the test out. And there have been cases of this in the past where somebody would be taking the test and just kind of walk out with it and run out with it. And that's how they did it.
So this brings us back to the question we addressed yesterday, Dr. Kim, on Reality Check, how ETS is not doing what it should be doing with administering the exam.
I think he has a view about this. I haven't changed my mind about that. What do you think?
Well, I think ETS is to blame. I think a lot of different parties are to blame. You can't just blame the test-taking service. That's like trying to blame, I guess, in some people's views, the automobile company for having car accidents or cigarette companies for lung cancer. But ETS, they're a huge industry. They have revenues of over $1 billion a year. And the big knack about them is they can easily prevent much of this by having different copies of tests at the different test centers. So from what I understand, there are about 3 or 4 versions of a test being taken at one sitting. And if you're lucky enough, as in the case with these past incidents, the time difference, kids take advantage of the time difference. So, of course, if you take the test in Korea, which is anywhere from 16 to 18 hours ahead of the U.S., then that person can take these test questions and forward them to a person in the United States before they take their test. And if they're lucky enough, it's going to be the same exact test.
I read that the pressure is on the private institute instructors to get the test questions as quickly as possible to give to their students. Once the test is administered, it's up to them to get the test questions out in whichever way they can. Sometimes they hire, I think, part-time workers to go and memorize these test questions.
Right. I think there is that important question about how prevalent this practice is actually and how much it's being practiced. I think Sid will have much to say about it. But let me get back to your point about the ETS being responsible. I can see, as an international service now, like their scope of service is pretty much international now, covering many countries and so on. But I was thinking, though, if I were to put myself in the shoes of ETS, would I want to really introduce all these different measures in order to, quote unquote, ensure the integrity of the test? Or would I think otherwise? And
Do you trust the students?
Yeah, because, I've been, one of the important part of my business is doing the professional evaluations and so on. But when customers ask whether evaluation itself is perfect, we say no. And so from the ETS perspective, what I was thinking was that their easy way out could be going with the existing system and let the schools, I think we'll talk about that point later on, or was going to talk about later on, but let the schools exercise so-called Korea discount. If there are you can continuously introduce these kind of preventive measures in order to prevent abuses and so on. And that process could go on forever. But from the business perspective, easy way out of it is just let Koreans do whatever they want to do and let the schools decide and in terms of how they're going to view Korean students' scores. That's much better, easy way out from the school's perspective and school from the business perspective.
But then again, ETS, they actually did this with the TOEFL. And one of the main driving forces behind the changes to the IBT TOEFL was because places such as Korea, when you do the CBT or the PBT, the paper-based test or the computer-based test, what they'll do is because the test is exactly the same, they'll use that time differential again. And you'll see in many websites throughout Korea where the students will put up the test questions and answers for other students to take advantage of in the future. And so one of the main reasons why ETS changed it to IBT is to prevent that from happening.
Right.
So they can do the same thing with the SAT. And I don't want to blame ETS for everything.
And I also admit, there are certain degree of cautious steps that they can take, and we can get a lot of details about it. But when we talk about the ultimate steps, for example, putting myself in the position of President ETS, for instance, rather than trying to continuously introduce things in order to ensure the full integrity of the test, I would rather find that easy way out.
I want to ask Sid this question. Is it really representative or indicative of an instructor's ability to get those test questions out as soon as possible and get them to the students so that they can go over them, or pinpoint questions that will be on the test the next time?
Well, I think for some people it is. And I guess that we have to talk about the prevalence of this. So how prevalent is this in the Korean society? And I think it is fairly prevalent, but I'd hate to say that this represents the majority of the students and parents and hagwon owners and teachers out there, because I don't think it does. Now, is it more explicit? Yes, I think it is. Whereas maybe in the United States, let's not, we have to know that cheating takes place everywhere. Cheating has taken place since education and tests were first made. And there are many instances. For example, last year in L.A., a group of high school students in L.A. were caught for cheating on the SAT. And what they did is they hired someone who was very good at it, made fake IDs, and that guy went and took all the tests for them. But that's not being nearly as publicized as this. And there are quite a few of these examples throughout the world. But what I think makes a big difference is here in Korea, we have a history of a test-based society where sort of the ends justifies the means, and the outcome is the most important thing. So throughout history, civil servant exams and all of these things, and the sunum.
And also, key point here is that students can do whatever they want to, but we're talking about a country here where parents are paying money for doing this stuff.
That's the thing. I think it boils down to the explicitness of parent cupidity.
Right.
They want, because we've talked about in many other different areas, about how Korea can be a very image-conscious society, and it's a lot about status as well. And to achieve that status, a lot of people are willing to do anything to get that status. So I think that really fuels the fire. Whereas maybe in the United States, maybe in the West, or even some of the other Asian countries, it's not as out there. Parents aren't saying, hey, I want my kid to get this score. I don't care how you do it. And then the adults on the other side, the educators, whether it be the school or the hagwon or whatever, they're not saying, usually in other countries they'll say, hey, this is wrong. But here, sometimes they'll go along with it. And I don't want to generalize and say everybody.
Many times they will go along with it.
Many times they will. And that's a combination of many, many different things, I think.
So the pressure is actually on these so-called star lecturers.
Because if basically what these star lecturers are doing is they need to create results. And for them, the best way to create results is for them to get the test in advance. How much better can you get at that? And they're creating this outcome that the parents want. And the parents are they might not out in the open say, hey, I want my kid to cheat on the exam. They're not going to say that, but they'll maybe turn a blind eye as long as the results are there.